Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.
Hello, and welcome to Champion Psychology, a show with the goal of openly talking about mental health and gaming, presented by Codename Entertainment and TakeThis.org. Every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on twitch.tv/CNE Games, Mitra Jordan and Raffael Boccamazzo, aka Dr. B, talk about mental health and how gaming affects us. If you hear this live in the chat, you can leave a question that Treavor Bettis, will ask them later in the show, but we're actually be doing a lot of asking questions today because this is the season finale of season 6, where we like to go back through past episodes of the season and grab some questions we weren't able to get to, and we're also going to grab one from the last Q&A as well. So there's questions all over the place, but before we get to that, who are you two for the fine folks who may not know?
I'm Mitra Jordan. I'm a registered clinical counselor working in Victoria, BC. I love games. I love science.
You're so basic.
You're just salty about it.
Oh.
Can we get back to the element of conversation here?
Yeah, we'll table this. We do this periodically, folks. Sorry.
Okay, I have no comeback to that. I just wear the shirt. But will I have a comeback to some of our questions? Stay tuned and we will find out.
There we go. And who are you, bow-tied man?
I don't know anymore. I mean, between backstage and all the stuff that's been going on, a Bowtie Man, I'm apparently Dr. Giggles the villain. I'm the Candy Man. There was singing and dancing going on. I'm Dr. B, gang. I have a long, unpronounceable name with way too many consonants than Scrabble allows.
I'm going to tell you a real true story, Dr. B. I was talking about this show at the bar I go to with my friends, and I was saying your names, and someone was just like, why is his name Dr. B? And when his full name is Raffael Boccamazzo, and they go, ah.
Yeah, but I'm a clinical psychologist. Apparently, I'm told. I'm the clinical director at TakeThis.org, the first mental health nonprofit to serve the game community, and I was so thrilled to be here because this is season 6 finale.
Yeah.
Really excited about that. You show up in all your persona because all of you belong here in the season 6 finale. How's that?
I was looking to see how many hats I have within reach.
Right.
I've only got
all
one.
Of you.
We know which one it is.
I only have a tea mug within reach that is very sadly empty, but I will change that.
This actually
MT?
goes with my Christmas sweater.
Empty. Okay. This is what today's going to be like.
Yes,
I've had a
it is.
slightly
Yes,
surreal
it is.
morning, and so
Strap in, folks.
Figure may as well say it at the top of the show here. So this is the finale of season 6. This is the last episode of this year. So, but we will be back in 2023. God, that is so wild to say. Yeah, we will be back in 2023 with more episodes. But we got like 50 minutes or so. So let's talk about some stuff.
You have questions, we have answers.
But yeah, even though we are answering old ones, you can ask new questions now. So if there's anything that has been on the back of your mind throughout the season that you want to talk about, put in question : and then your question, and we'll do our best to get to them by the end of the episode. Otherwise, check out next season's Q&A finale. All right. Let's start with a question from the Q&A from last season. Which is lower than I thought it was because things got moved around. Haha! This is from Orc Princess. Question: I'm a huge advocate to be open about my mental health issues when they come up, in the hopes that it will help someone else and make them feel more comfortable talking or getting help. Do you have any advice on how to share without causing more harm than good? Thank you.
I actually added, because we were talking about this yesterday, and I had one thing that occurred to me afterwards, which is, because I work as a therapist, I am at times open with clients about ADHD or any experiences that may relate to them. But of course, self-disclosure is a thing you want to watch out for. And I'm also mindful that if I share mental health experiences on social media in any way, clients may wonder if they're getting the best of me if they come in to see me. So while on the whole, as you all know here, I am open about my mental health journey at times, or some of the things I've dealt with, or ADHD, I'm not necessarily going to say, wow, yeah, I feel really crappy today, if you see what I mean, right? If there's a broader picture people know about, I might say, yeah, I'm going through a grief process or a lot of change or whatever, but that's different than being specific. So I think part of sharing our own mental health with people is figuring out our level of safety with that, their level of receptivity and safety as well, and the kind of situation that you're in. But beyond that, we've got some tips and ideas.
Yeah, I like to think about it across two things. One is situation, and the other is purpose. And so actually, this brings up something technical a bit. When clinicians and medical providers are talking between each other, when we have a release of information to talk, at least in the United States, there is a rule about minimum necessary information. And so if I have if clients come to me and they give me a release of information to talk to their old therapist, I can't just gossip with that therapist. One, because I have to document what I talk about, but two, it's not relevant to the case.
Yeah.
And so I have to think about what's the minimum necessary information that I need to share in order to get the point across. But also, is this the time and the place? So you hear about like trauma dumping in chat.
Yeah.
A Twitch chat ain't the time and the place to be dumping your story.
Yeah.
Okay. For two reasons. One, probably not the purpose of that chat.
Yep.
And two, it affects other people. There's other people in the metaphorical room. And so who I'm talking to, how I'm talking to them, and the purpose of that really dictates what and how much I share. Also, I'm eating my own hair, apparently. It's been 2 years and I'm still not used to having long hair. Gets real fun at dinner time. But yeah, I think about what's the purpose of my communication? Who am I sharing this with? Why? And all of that. And that dictates how little or how much I talk about it. Like Mitra said, we're all pretty open on this show about some of our struggles, but that's the point of this show, for us to talk about this stuff. Much like Mitra, I don't do the same thing in therapy, because that ain't the point. The point is not to center it on me. So yeah, that's what I think about.
Okay. I think those are good answers. Anything else to add, or should we go to the next one?
On to the next.
Okay. So we're going to jump to another episode. This comes from Lesh68. Question: diagnosed as an adult with autism. There was no diagnosis when I was young, and I was shuffled around and on my own since 14. How did you deal with the anger that goes along with the situation, as in my entire life could have, should have, etc.? Essentially, getting that diagnosis when you were younger and knowing what that was, and how that might have possibly changed things. Do you ever get angry about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
I went
sometimes.
through a lot of years thinking I was lazy, unfocused, unmotivated, unambitious. There's a lot of uns in here, and not disciplined enough. Right? There was a lot around all of that. Definitely left me feeling less than, definitely slowed down my personal journey in terms of achievement. And of course, so then you're not achieving, the same way your cohort or your peers are, or you kind of expect or hope to be. And you've no one else to really look at for that except, your own choices and behaviors, you think. You don't think, hey, maybe I'm neurodiverse, of course. So it was definitely really quite tough. It was a real relief to find out. I think that, Trevor, you were speaking to, actually, I think you both were talking about how when people are diagnosed, sometimes they don't know what that means.
Oh,
so
yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, like I've said on the show, I was diagnosed when I was in first grade, but nobody told me what that was. Nobody told me what that meant. I mean, even my mom, who does have ADHD, was like, I didn't know what that meant for me either. So we just were like, okay, well, you have ADD. That means you get really hyper and excited about things. Other than that, don't worry about anything. Go off and have fun. Yeah, it's wild to think about, because like I was on medication, but I didn't know what that medication was helping me with. I thought it was just helping me not go, bouncing off the walls. But it turns out, no, that medication was helping me for a lot of things. And so I might not have decided to stop taking it when I was in senior year. I don't know. That decision may have looked very different than having known, if I had known what I was actually dealing with.
Well, and one of the things that I often think about when I start getting angry about this is it's not just knowing that I'm autistic.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, that would help. That would have helped a lot, knowing I'm both ADHD and autistic. But there's so many more factors involved in supporting a child through that development, because yeah, getting a diagnosis is it's a great first step, but are you going to modify the environment? Are the parents and teachers going to respond in a kind and supportive way?
Yeah.
Are you going to get an education about what that means in terms of development and accommodations that are necessary? So as much as I would like to fantasize that me getting a diagnosis early would have saved me a couple of decades of self-loathing, the truth of the matter is that label alone wouldn't have been enough.
Yeah.
It would have had to have been so many more other factors involved in raising a good ADHD kid.
I can tell you, having known that I had the label, it didn't help, because I tell people, like, the times where I couldn't focus or anything, like, sorry, I have ADD. And they'd be like, that's not an excuse. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just imagine the nerve of saying that to somebody who has a physical mobility disability. Like, if someone has mobility challenges walking, well, I can't get up the stairs because I have a disability. Well, that's no excuse. But we say that to kids with ADHD.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the thing. It's almost like, if then were now, yes, it would have made a difference to my life. It's made a difference to my kids' lives. Absolutely. Two of them have ADHD, and one of them has behaviors very akin to ADHD, although he doesn't seem to pass all the ADHD markers, if you will. But they've all had challenges with attention and focus, and have to figure out how to do things. And certainly medication has made a difference in my life and in theirs. And I think that 20 years ago, attitudes towards ADHD were very different. I still remember doing an art school program, and one of the guys running the workshops was saying that his daughter had ADHD and they were giving her Ritalin, and he was clearly very uncomfortable with the whole thing. And so parents whose kids were diagnosed and given a prescription for Ritalin were left feeling like they weren't doing an okay job as parents. They were giving their kids something risky. This was going to really compromise their kids' health. There was a lot of information about 10 years after that about, what's his name? Sir Ken, do you know who I'm talking about? Dr. B, Ken Robinson, who talked a lot about how we need to change education. Sir Ken Robinson, I believe, and said some really, really positive things about changing education and working with the whole child, but also said some rather detrimental things about how we're sitting our children down and we're popping pills into their mouths in order to keep them still because we don't know how to educate them better.
Oh.
Now, you can see with that kind of message how parents would get really upset with themselves.
Yeah, see,
right?
as soon as you said that quote, I'm like, oh, I remember hearing that. I heard that one a lot when I was a kid.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
We're medicating our children because we're taking them to a sort of academic industrial complex where it's very much a kid has to fit into the round hole of school.
Yep.
And there is some truth to that. Not around the ADHD thing, but certainly, or kids who are special needs in other way. This isn't really, in my mind, the issue. What is the issue is that, yes, of course, we need to figure out how to educate all our kids. There's a piece around how teachers behave, how schools behave, how safe kids feel in school environments, and whether they can learn, that I think is pretty crucial here. But I don't think pathologizing parents or kids who are ADHD or in any other way special needs is the answer. Or deciding you can't meet their need. Yeah, sorry, your kid doesn't fit in with school. Obviously, education is also changing. But if I think back to that time, yeah, would have been very difficult to even have a diagnosis and be treated properly.
Okay, let's move on to another one so we can try and get as many of these in here as we can.
Yeah.
We're going to skip ahead a few episodes. This is from Cupid XV. Question. So this was on the topic of therapists and whatnot. As you said, vibing with the therapist is important. How do you say to a therapist, quote, I'm not vibing with you so much as this is starting to be uncomfortable. Oh, the quotation didn't. I'm not vibing with you so much that this is... I can't read the words. So much so this is starting to be uncomfortable to be here. Oh, okay, so that was part of the quote. Sorry, I've been awake since 5:30 this morning and I've not had enough coffee. So yeah, essentially, you know, how do you tell a therapist you're not vibing? And this person even going so far as to say that sessions are becoming uncomfortable for them.
Well, okay, so Nerf makes a therapeutic dart gun that if you, it's in a special section of Target that it's behind the exercise equipment. You have to move some dumbbells, and then there it is, the Nerf therapist adjuster. But don't shoot your therapist with a dart gun.
Oh boy.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't.
It's hard because okay, we've talked about this before. There's this thing called power differential. Okay. And in a therapeutic environment, and this is part of the reason therapy has been abused, you know, historically, is that the person with more power often makes the rules. And it's so hard to speak truth to power.
Yeah.
You are already coming in at this with a disadvantage. This is part of the reason that a lot more people are embracing what's called an egalitarian approach. It's the reason I tell my clients that I work for them all the time. I tell them, they're sick of hearing it. I work for you, and if you ever feel like you're working for me, something has gone wrong. But that's just it. They work for you. And so incidentally, takethis.org just put out some really cool a pair of articles about how to advocate for yourself in therapy. But it can often be as simple as, hey, there's something I wanted to talk to you about, and there's something just doesn't feel like is working here. It can just be that simple.
Yeah.
It's
Mitra,
really
how do you like it
important.
when people approach you with that stuff?
I really like it. I mean, it may be really tough in the moment to hear, oh, I'm not doing what they need. But the whole point of therapy, and in fact, the whole point of clients being able to confront things is crucial, right? That's often part of what people are dealing with, is they've been going along with sometimes in their lives. So sometimes I try to interrupt that process and, you know, be like, okay, is this actually working? But I think it's great when clients do it. I think it's really important, because how else do I know I'm on the right track with
Yeah.
them? I always remind people that they're the experts in their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I want for people to come back to, as their own instinctual sense of what's real and true and important to them, like to be able to really be in connection with themselves.
Yeah.
I actually want to throw that out. I actually want to throw that out there to everybody. Is a question that's worth asking when you're meeting a therapist for the first time is how often and how do you and how often do you solicit feedback from your clients?
Every session. But yes, I think
Yeah,
that's
well, it's there are
several.
therapists who just straight up don't do it.
Yeah. And actually several times through a session, because I think to me it's part of an ongoing consent process in therapy. So I might say, when a client comes in, last time you shared that the next session you wanted to talk about X thing, how relevant is that feeling for you right now? Is that where you'd like to go in this session? And then through the session, I might say, okay, you're bringing up this and this, looks like we can go in this direction or that. What's going to feel right for you now? What's more pressing? Because I'm mindful people have an hour. And so I want to make sure that they're getting the best use of their time with me.
Their time.
Yeah, it's their time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've 100% been on the other side of this, of worrying that, of going like, hey, I don't actually think this therapist is working for me. And then like dreading figuring out how to bring that up. But now, after doing this show for as long as we have, 6 seasons, and, knowing the two of you and whatnot, like, I can confidently say you should just bring that up. And I know the worry is like, oh, what if they have a bad reaction to it? And now in my head, what I would be thinking is, if I bring that up to a therapist and they have a bad reaction to it, that means I was right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that's the ultimate you flashing neon, hey, you were right sign for you to like, not be there anymore.
Yeah.
That's how I would see it
doesn't
for
mean
myself.
It's not hard though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, because there is still that chance of like a bad interaction, and I know people avoid that at all costs. Trust me, I do too.
Well, and because we have this such trusting, vulnerable relationship, I actually had to do this recently with now my former therapist. Because they were constantly showing up late, constantly rescheduling. Like it was I started charting it. It was about a 50-50 chance they showed up 15 minutes late or just straight up had to cancel.
Wow.
And I had to confront them about this because I got a tight schedule.
Yeah.
My schedule is not flexible. I work 2 jobs.
I just can't imagine your therapist just canceling on you. I have had to do that once when we had a house-related emergency at one point. And it was with plenty of notice. It was that day, but it was earlier, and it was like, let's reschedule, and I'm so sorry, But imagine just not showing up or canceling at the last minute.
Yeah,
it's awful.
And I mean, I just, for those of you in the audience who are thinking about this, of you're having trouble bringing this up, I want you to think about the fact that, one, I am a psychologist. I am a public-facing psychologist who has done in the last 7 years public talks that are now in the triple digits.
Yeah.
I am an advocate. I was scared to bring it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is because of that piece around vulnerability. We're all more vulnerable without therapists. And I think part of the challenge, because I remember having a really excellent therapist for a little while when I was about 19, and then seeing someone who had a lot of authority. He was a psychiatrist, very well established, and recommended by a friend of mine who was a psychiatrist themselves at the time. And it really wasn't going well. And he'd suggested we try psychoanalysis. And, we'd sort of, he felt, come to the end of the road of our work unless we moved to doing psychoanalysis. But that was his decision, not mine. It wasn't what I felt forced. I needed from the therapy. The other piece that was really tough is I remember we always sat, he was at his desk, I'd come in, I'd take a seat, on the chair across from him at his desk. And in his office, he also had a couch for the psychoanalysis piece. Yes, really. And he also had two comfortable armchairs that were sort of angled from each other, the way many therapists' offices do. And I remember always looking longingly at the armchairs. But I never dared to bring up, hey, I would really prefer to sit at the armchairs.
Yep, I get that.
It was such a simple thing, but I
Mhm.
always check in. Like I have clients who I know where they like to sit, but
Yeah.
I also, when people start seeing me, I'm like, where would you be comfortable? Please feel free to change where you sit. Like
Yeah.
sit where it's going to work for you, you know? So
I sat on a couch in my therapist's place, and I sat in the same place every time. I don't know why I did that. Every time it
Oh,
was
everybody
like
does
I
that.
sat
everybody
right here.
does
Everybody
that.
does that.
Yeah, it's so weird because it's like it's not even like it was a class and there was assigned seating. It's not like
No.
it's not like she ever even gestured like have a seat. I just was like, this is my comfort zone, I guess. Anything
No,
outside
everybody
of
does
here,
it.
not my comfort
Yeah.
zone.
And it's funny because I've tried to change it up at one point. I have a lovely therapist, and I didn't. Now I tend to see her online when I see her, but at this point in person, I always sat in the chair across from her. It's a very comfortable chair. We're face to face. It's great. But she also has this little couch, and I thought, I'm gonna try the couch. And for about 10 minutes of that session, I sat on the couch, and it felt really wrong.
I have had multiple, back when I saw people in person, I had multiple clients over the years try to do that, and they were like, you know what?
I'm just
I
gonna
think
go back
change
to
is
my
good.
spot.
I think this change is good. I'm gonna sit in the other chair. And I watch them sit down, and they're just like squirming in their seat, and I'm like, hey, so what's going on? The room looks wrong from this angle. This is weird, man. And I was like, you could sit back at the other. I don't care. Do you want to switch seats? No. With me? No. You want to go back to your other chair? Yes, sir. I'm like, okay.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna take a quick break to remind our viewers and listeners or I guess viewers, of our disclaimer, and then we'll answer a few more questions, and then maybe get to some that have been popping up during chat during this episode. So we'll find out. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.
All right. So, actually, you know what? I'm just not going to trust that button. Okay, good. It did bring it up. I just want to make sure, because otherwise we've just been talking to the void. Let's go to another actually, no, this is the same episode as the last one. So
Same
it's still about
episode.
therapists. This is from, what? Evil Marmalade? Yeah, or Evil Marmalade. Yep.
Evil.
Love it.
Yes, evil marmalade.
Yes, I love it. Question. Let's say that you're already seeing a therapist, parentheses, and you're medicated, but you're not sure you're progressing. How can you tell if it's a problem with the therapist or if you're just hitting a plateau?
Talk to the therapist.
Yeah, same as the previous answer.
Clients will sometimes say, I don't feel I'm progressing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a question I want to hear.
Yeah.
I want to know that that's how they're feeling. And sometimes, it might be that we've actually discussed ways they might progress that they haven't been ready to do, that haven't felt right. And so we get to revisit stuff, and we get to talk about new stuff, new ways to go forward. It's great.
Funny enough, that was the other thing that I was like also stressing about talking with my therapist about, was just like, because it started with like, I don't know if I'm progressing, and then it made me think more about sessions and go like, oh, I don't actually think that this is working for me. It all
Yeah.
goes in a line.
And sometimes the really good thing about it is I, as a therapist, take notes, which means I can go back to some of their first sessions and remind them of how things were. And we can take a really good look at what progression looks like and feels like for them, and the changes that they've made. And does that feel like progress? Does it feel like the right progress? Does it feel like enough progress? And we don't often get the opportunity otherwise in life to, unless we look back at our own journals and emails and things, we don't always get to see how someone's observed or thought about what we've said, made notes about it, and can come back to us and say, well, maybe you've done this, this, and this, or that, and that. And how's that feeling? Does that feel like it's contributing to forward momentum for you? Anyway, really excited about that question. Sorry, but
Well,
it's great.
it's the best.
It's a really fun question because
Yeah.
sometimes when you honestly examine it, it might mean you're just not a good fit as a pair. Like maybe the skill set I bring isn't a good match for their needs. And sometimes that happens. And at that point, we have an honest conversation about who can I refer them to? Because of course, client welfare is the ultimate goal here. It's not my ego.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's exactly like that. And we look back at what they what they set as treatment goals, and we start to realize the reason you're having a lack of progress is because you hit 3 out of your 4 treatment goals there, bud. You've done most of the things you came here to do. And so of course things are going slower. Let's talk about that 4th one so we can. And by the way, I want to preface this that I work with primarily teenagers, and a lot of them have a very perverse sense of humor. So when I say I fire clients, it's a very celebratory thing. My clients love being fired by me because it means they're doing amazing, and we have a celebratory ritual and so forth. It's not me saying I hate you, get out. It's like, oh my God, you're doing amazing, I get to fire you now. Isn't that cool? And we talk about it well beforehand, and it's a whole conversation. But anyway,
Love it.
If we're getting to the point that they're feeling like they're not making progress because they've hit all their goals, then I'm like, cool, let's talk about getting you fired from therapy. Again, I work with teenagers. They find it hilarious, and they even joke with me about it.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that sometimes, clients' progress can feel really slow if you're the person doing the progressing. It's like when your great aunt comes over and is like, you've grown so much when you're a kid. And you didn't notice, except that your pants got shorter, So it's the same here. We start to take for granted the parts of ourselves that have changed and that have improved. And we're not necessarily thinking, oh yeah, no, things really are better. And so that might mean there's new goals that a client chooses to work on. Or it might mean we're done therapy for now. We might be done therapy for always. I might not be the right fit when you decide maybe therapy is again for you. I do have clients who come back after a number of years, and say, well, I'm in a relationship now, and there's these new things I want to work on. That's actually a pretty common one. Yeah.
Oh God,
and also
common.
Because when you're outside of an intimate relationship, there's some things that just aren't as visible in your life until you're in one again. And then you start to work on those kinds of issues that might come up. So, yeah.
All right. Now we're going to jump to another episode. And this one is from Goblin Katie. Question.
No. Huh?
No, we're just no on Goblin.
I really hope Goblin Katie's watching this right now. If not, I'm gonna text her.
Question: what is your favorite one-line encouragement for people struggling with comparing themselves to their peers in their hobbies?
My one-line encouragement to Goblin Katie is, if I hear you doing that, I will text you, and I will say, what would you say to me? Because you wouldn't let me do that.
Reverse Uno card.
Oh no, I'm totally doing that. Lauren, we're ganging up on her.
But besides that, what would you do?
Well, actually, Actually, that's a good one though, because it's kind of like I might get into how people would treat a friend who's experiencing some of the things that they are. That's actually not a bad one. And the other one I really like is it's essentially some version of it's not a pain Olympics. What happens often in therapy is people will be aware of their own good fortune, their privilege, whatever it is, and they'll be like, yeah, but I know other people have it much worse, and I just don't want to burden people with how I'm feeling, that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, look, you're experiencing what you're experiencing, and yeah, you do have some privilege. What that means from my perspective is that once you've worked through this thing, you will actually be able to, that unstuckness will free you to be able to do so much good, both for yourself and others in your life. So it's not about, oh, my situation isn't as bad as someone else's. Let's not minimize what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
So that's often a common one.
I also ask my friends, why are they comparing themselves? Because there's different comparisons to others are not a universal. We don't do them all for the same reason. If I'm doing things in a critical way, and not in a criticizing way, but a critical way to analyze where I've progressed, and maybe I'm looking at someone who I admire, who's better than me in a certain area, and I'm looking at, okay, how do I be more like them in a really honest way without self-denigrating? That's a very different comparative experience than envy or jealousy or self-deprecation or something like that. And so I really ask people, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Because we have to do that, like in artistic and professional circles. Like, I'm surrounded by people at Take This who intimidate me professionally. And you know what? It's kind of a mixed blessing. Because on one hand, I'm intimidated by them because they're geniuses.
Yeah.
They are so brilliant at all the stuff they do. It also gives me the opportunity to learn from them, to see what am I doing differently and what could I be doing differently to be more like them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's different than doing it for the purposes of self-denigration. So very to answer this question, what's my one line answer to people who are comparing themselves against other people? Why are you doing it? Like, for what purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then we go from there.
That's fair.
Yeah. And yes, sorry. I think the general question was more like, okay, I have completely lost my train of thought, which is great. Let's leave the station. Sounds good.
I'll reread it real quick. So what is your favorite one-line encouragement for people struggling with comparing themselves to their peers and their hobbies?
Okay, we were really right on track. Yes.
Yeah, no, we actually were.
Yeah, and I think their hobbies is actually an interesting one I would like to quickly address, because a hobby is meant to be for fun, for your pleasure.
Sorry, what?
As an activity that replenishes you, leaves you feeling more resourced.
What?
No, I'm sorry, Mitra. No. Hold on. My understanding of hobbies was it was for me to go on Instagram and follow all the people who are way better at it than I am and to hate myself.
I thought hobbies were that thing you have fun with, and then you have so much fun with, you're like, oh, I could do this and make money, and then you start doing that, and then you start making money, and then it stops being fun, but you keep doing it because it's making money. And that's what hobbies are, right?
I'm fascinated by your philosophy, and I would like to sign up for your newsletter.
It sounds great. I'll sign you up right away and tell you right now, my newsletter is short. It's to the point. It's to enjoy stuff.
Yeah.
It's to improve your skills in something, but not worry about your skills compared to other people, but rather your skills compared to you.
Yeah.
Are you doing your hobby better now than you were doing it a year ago? Are you having more fun? Are you enjoying the accumulation of skill in your hobby? Because if not, could you stop? Really stop. Because this was for you. And if it's not serving you, don't do it. There are lots of things in life that aren't for you. When I'm in the kitchen angrily stirring my cauldron because I have to make some people dinner, trust me, I don't feel like it's for me in that moment.
Sorry, I You're just going away on it.
I actually have to ask you, Mitra, given your expertise in professional kitchens, how do you feel about the Le Creuset enameled cauldrons?
do they require like a fan hood above it, or do you just let all the fumes go out?
You waft.
I wish I had a fan hood. Actually, my kitchen doesn't have one. But
Oh
actually, no, it's really old, and I frequently want to take a pickaxe to it. It's definitely something we're looking at. Is how on earth are we gonna do the? Yeah. Anyway, never mind my renovation issues. I actually prefer Staub to Le Creuset. Thank you. I like the black interior. It suits my personality. My black interior. You can get what I'm going here.
Oh my goodness, you are going for that witchy aesthetic all the way.
Heck yeah.
All the way. There is an orange background here, and I'm wearing black.
It's true. That's the secret. There's always been a
and I love the name Evil Marmalade.
Mitra in her kitchen making evil marmalade in her cauldron.
So the one thing that I want to say about this though, when it comes to like comparing to peers, so no secret, the way that I got to where I am right now is because I started doing podcasting. And hey, fun fact, there's a lot of podcasts.
Are there a lot of podcasts?
A lot of podcasts.
Huh.
And doing so, I ended up making friends with a bunch of people who also were doing podcasts, but not just like, podcasts have been going on for a while, ones that were recent, like mine. And there were several shows that just blew up, or just got had something happen. They had a guest on, they had something that happened, and people were talking about it and everything, and my show wasn't. And I totally felt that comparison at the beginning. Like I remember several nights of just sitting there, just feel like, man, what am I doing wrong? What is this? And I don't know how I did this, and this is why I'm it's not advice, this is just something that happened to me. Somehow I turned my brain around to, every time you feel that, instead get excited for them, because it's freaking awesome that they're having this happen, and you should be excited for them. And so that's what I did. Every time one of those things happened, I just got excited for them. I retweeted it out. I quote retweeted and said how excited I was for my friends to have this awesome stuff happening. And it's to the point that it doesn't bother me anymore. Like I can, when it comes to that, at least, when it still comes to me trying to draw, I still look at anybody who can draw better than me and go, oh, I can't do this, and I'm never going to do it. But when podcasting, at least, I'm just chill with it. And then I got to the point that, like, I'd been podcasting for so long, people were coming to me asking for advice, and that was wild. So that was just kind of changing the thinking to that helped me. It's not something that's going to work for everyone or anything like that, but it helped me. And I'm sure that if I hadn't done that, I probably would have been not great for a while.
Yeah, I think that there is so much out there, and a scarcity in terms of either access to it, right? Because sometimes if you're not popular enough, as it were, the algorithm just won't pick up your stuff, or if you're not specific enough, or if you're not a niche. And I think all of that, particularly around social media type stuff, leaves us feeling like there's not enough.
Yeah.
There's not enough room for us here.
Yeah.
There's just, we're not enough is where we go next, right? And as soon as you hit, I'm not enough, you're not having fun anymore. You're turning into, yourself, and you're feeling small, and it's just not great. And you have to remember why you started doing it in the first place. What was it for you?
Right. Well, there's also a question of process versus product.
Yeah.
And are you doing this because you want to make the best product out there, and you'll be never satisfied unless you're the absolute best? Well, sorry, probably not going to happen. That is a road that's destined to lead to failure and sadness. Are you doing it because you enjoy the process? Do you enjoy learning? Do you enjoy the collaborative aspect? Like so my buddies are Jester on the Twitters. Such a good mini painter, such a good V, the crafting muse, same thing. There are things that they do with minis that I can't do, and I probably won't be able to. V is probably the best dry brusher I've ever seen, and I just can't do it with that kind of precision. And at the same time, that doesn't mean I don't have certain talents and skills. I've gotten fairly adept at using washes to cover up for the fact that I have real unsteady hands.
Real talk. I painted this with V on Friday. The only reason this looks good is because of a wash. That's it. Other than that, this is bone white and a wash.
Yeah. So the two words that help me with that is good enough.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And also recognizing where you were before.
Yeah.
Like, it's maybe you won't ever be like V, and that's fine. But will you be like you?
Yeah.
Will you bring you to whatever it is you're doing? Will you have fun with you while you're there? Because, okay, I've been sewing since I was 6. And there are people who've been sewing for 2 or 3 years now who are better than me. Okay.
Oh, it's tough.
Right?
Yeah.
Actually, it's fine, because I haven't consistently sewn since I was 6. You know, I've had a life and a job as a chef, and then, you know, school, and then becoming a therapist. And I've had 3 kids through all of that. And I've had a partner and the ups and downs of life. And yeah, I haven't always had the space to sew. I haven't always had the time, and I haven't always had really good tools. And until you start doing a thing, you actually don't realize how much of a difference specific and good tools make.
Oh yeah.
Like,
oh
if
my
you
God, yes.
look at your t-shirt hem, you cannot do that on a regular machine.
Yeah.
You can kind of fake it with something called a twin needle, but it will not do a good job.
Yeah.
You need a cover stitch machine to do a really good job on certain things. And yeah, there are ways to kind of get through that, but it's going to take you 4 times as long. And as I say, it just won't look the same. So my point is, when you start doing a hobby or a thing or a love or a, you know, podcasting, you can't always afford the right tools.
Yep.
Right.
You don't maybe have people who are also doing it and can give you tips.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pieces here. So of course you're not going to be as good as someone who's been doing it for 5 or 10 years, or could afford good equipment, or has the time in their lives, or doesn't have a million other things that they're trying to do, or.
Oh my God,
So,
yes.
So this is the thing. This is the thing that I've, like, especially when it came to podcasting, that I drove home, is I'm just like, you're never gonna make an amazing sounding podcast on your first try. So don't set that as the bar. Just start doing it. I started recording shows in my car using AirPods. Like, it sounds terrible. But people still enjoyed it for what it was. And if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have gotten the skills to know what to do when I got behind a mic. And that still didn't sound good, because the first time I was behind a mic, you have to have that progression. You can't just jump in. There's maybe a Marvel DC equivalent I could give here, but I'm not going to do it. You can't just jump in and be good at it immediately. You have.
I mean, they tried with Deathstroke, Slade Wilson. Yeah, that's great. But then Deadpool happened. All right, and then they got it right.
I was talking MCU, DCU, but still, yeah.
I stand by it.
But
Of course you do.
Okay, we're actually running out of time here. And I do want to get to one question that we got in the chat today. This is from Lurking Writer. Question: Dr. B, could you / are you able to talk more about the new Discworld endeavor that you mentioned before? I did this specifically because Dr. B made sure before that he could talk about this while on the show. So yes, of course I'm going to do this one.
Yeah. So it's been announced that in 2023, I'm editing a book in ETC Press's Zeitgeist of Pop Culture series, and specifically I'm editing a book on the psychology of Discworld. If people are not aware of it, I am a huge Discworld fan. Huge. Like Kelly the Opera Geek and I have matching anvil pins.
This man sent me a chart when I said, where should I start?
Specifically the 3.0 version of that chart, because they needed to be updated. But if you follow me on the Twitters, there is an open call for chapter abstracts for chapter authors until December 19th. And if you are an academic writer who has thoughts on a chapter of the psychology of Discworld, make sure to check out that tweet, look at the open call, and send an abstract my way, because I'm looking forward to doing a really killer book on the psychology of Discworld.
Heck yeah.
And you don't have to be a psychologist to write in this. Actually, I've totally roped in the opera geek to write something.
So yeah, where can they send that? Where can they do that?
Just make sure to follow me on the Twitters
Okay.
and now the Hive.
Hey.
At the
Yeah.
Dr. B on all things, and I'm blasting it out every couple days to make sure we get some good submissions.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that is a good place to wrap up this episode and this season. Friends, if people want to find you on the interwebs, where could they do so?
At the moment, still at Mitra Jordan on Twitter, but I will be posting where I'm moving to as well, where I'm adding on, where else? Where else? And of course, you can find me at mitrajordan.com as well.
And
Yes.
yeah,
And
I'm the
yes.
Dr. B on all the things. Although now, thanks to Star Chaser, I'm really sad I didn't go with Dr. BEE on Hive. But I got to keep branding consistent. So that's TheeDoctor as in boy on all the socials. But you know who you really should follow is Take This Org. Make sure to follow what we do. Keep up to date. We've got some great new resources. We've just updated our mental health resources that are free. We've got some Burnout 101 stuff that's just been put out there that Dr. Kelly Dunlop did an amazing job creating that page. Got some streamer burnout resources coming soon. We got lots of stuff in the works.
Heck yeah. Yeah, and you can follow me on Twitter at the Treavor. There's an A hiding in there, and it's also the same on Hive because I'm on there too, and I really like that place. I don't understand why I have what songs I do on my profile, but there they are, and that's what I wanted to do.
Ooh, that sounds like a question we need to ask you on Hive.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's a question you can ask.
What songs?
No, that's a great feature.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, if you want to ask me questions on Hive, go ahead and put it on there. Yeah, I think that is going to wrap up this episode and this season. Thank you all so much for joining us through all these episodes. Thank you to our mods, Jordan and Mars, for doing a fantastic job. And thank you to Codename Entertainment and Take This for giving us an opportunity to have these discussions. Let's see, the rest of the week is interesting because we do have an American holiday that's going on, so be sure to check our Twitter, Reddit, and Discord for the Twitch schedule so you can see what's going on there. But yeah, that's going to do it for this year of Champion Psychology. So until 2023, take care of yourself. Bye.
Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.